Hello, and welcome to Radiance Revealed, the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jen Haley. I'm a board-certified dermatologist, fitness enthusiast, nutrition expert, and global explorer that over the years has uncovered that your skin is a true representation of your internal health. Each week, we will chat with leading health, wellness, and even spiritual experts who will reveal secrets to true health and vitality. My goal is to help you change small habits to give you the power to create a more balanced, aligned, and elevated version of yourself. Now let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Radiance Revealed podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jen Haley, and with me this week, I have Sandy Newton back. She was on our episode 5. It's been almost 3 years. And Sandy has over 30 years of experience working in both the medical and aesthetic fields as an advanced medical esthetician and a certified health coach. And she's traveled around the world. She teaches internationally, and I've personally worked with her. And she's my go-to person for any esthetician recommendations. So I wanted to have her back on the show today to join me. So welcome back, Sandy.
Hey, I am so glad to be here. Do you know, I think it's actually been almost 3.5 years.
Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous.
Time goes by so fast.
I know. And you don't look any older.
Well, neither do you.
I look younger with the braces on, actually. So as we get started, we were just chatting before we started recording about how important skincare is at home and how important nutrition is. So these are some of the things I want to cover today. And when we practiced together, we would always talk about how essential skincare is at home. And people don't often understand that when they're coming in, whether it's a patient or a client coming in for a medical treatment in the office. So I use the analogy of the dentist, right? Because we often get compared to dentists. So when you go to the dentist, and you get your teeth cleaned or you get a checkup to say you're getting your teeth cleaned, you're still brushing your teeth at home. And the same happens in the office, whether you're getting a medical treatment like Botox or whether you're getting an aesthetic treatment like microneedling or chemical peels, you still want to take care of your skin at home with daily skincare products. So as we get started, I want to go through your recommendations for skincare products when you're teaching estheticians. Like, what are some of the basics that you often will recommend people start with?
Yeah. So I use that analogy a lot with the dentist when I'm teaching as well. And part of it too is it's a reminder to the skin. So I say that to estheticians because what I find when I go into an office is that they might be so focused on the treatment that they're giving that sometimes they'll forget to review or remind them of what they need to be doing at home. So I always say when somebody's coming to see me, tell me what you do at home before I even start doing anything. And I really am amazed that most people don't do much at home and they think that just coming in for a microneedling or a chemical peel or even just a standard deep cleansing enzyme facial, that's all that they ever need to do. And they can go about their day and find whatever they want to find to maybe take their makeup off. And I'm amazed how many people don't take their makeup off at the end of the day. And they go, oh, I just washed my face in the shower the next morning. So I try to keep it simple. I think simple is better, especially when people don't have a routine. And I always say, you've got to find a cleanser that you like. You got to find a moisturizer that you like. And under no circumstance, I don't care where you live, you got to have an SPF that you wear every day. And a lot of times I get the thing, oh, it's in my makeup. And so I'll say, well, do you use a mineral-based makeup? And if they don't, then I go back to the whole thing of you're not getting enough protection from your skin, and the sunscreen or SPF that says that's in your makeup really isn't enough to do any protection from blue light, environmental factors, all of that. And then I will really take a different road and I'll start talking about vitamin C and retinols and peptides. And that's where it's the rabbit hole of skincare. And really talking with estheticians, they either prescribe too much or they don't prescribe at all. It's really hard to find that happy medium where they just go, oh, I need to remember to talk about this every single time that somebody comes in. Just like when you go to the dentist, they want to know how many times a day you're flossing your teeth. So how many times a day are you cleansing? Do you just cleanse at night? Do you moisturize just at night? Maybe you don't moisturize during, in the morning before you put your SPF on. So that's kind of where I start.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think it's such an important point about the cleansing at night because everything we do, everything we recommend is all about supporting our body to naturally heal and protect itself, right? And that's why we're using the products in the morning that we recommend and the products at night that we recommend. But also with a cleanser, if we don't remove the grime and the buildup of dirt and the environmental toxins from our skin, at night before we put on our skincare, or even if we don't remove those toxins, we're not allowing our body to naturally renew and rejuvenate itself, which you can get away with when you're 20 in college, but you really can't get away with that when you're 30, 40, 50 and beyond. So the
Correct.
cleansing's yeah, that's a really huge point. And like, what are some of the biggest, like the biggest things that you see with the vitamin C's? You mentioned there's newer formulations and there's a lot of information out there regarding vitamin C. Like I just heard a podcast where somebody said vitamin C can be toxic to the skin. And I
Oh my.
understand ascorbic acid, which we don't really put in formulations, just ascorbic acid in itself is not something you want to apply to your skin. These things are deliberately formulated, but they're not all created equal. So like what should somebody look for with a vitamin C after they cleanse in the morning and then are putting on vitamin C is your recommendation?
Well, and I always tell them, you'd be amazed how many people that come in that I talk to, or even I'll go into a medical practice and they'll prescribe vitamin C and, oh, you can use it twice a day. And I'm always saying, well, there's no reason to use it at night because it is that environmental protection. And when we think about being inside our homes, that's a safe environment. So we don't need to protect against it. So when I look at vitamin C's, there's so many on the market. And I always want to know if it's, definitely that L-ascorbic is kind of the traditional. And I want to know what kind of formula it's in. If it's in a liquid, that you needs to be told, the average person doesn't realize that if they don't use that bottle or whatever, dropper that they're using to get it out, that if it's a liquid, if it's a water base, it's going to oxidize it within 3 months. So the color is going to change on it. It's going to start to almost get a rancid smell to it. And they're still getting a little bit of vitamin C, but it's not at the level that they purchased. And a lot of vitamin C's are very pricey. So another one is a lipid formula that vitamin C, and then there's a salt formula of vitamin C. So those are different changes. You'll see those two typically in your medical grade skincare. And they have longer shelf lives. If you look at a vitamin C that is in a anhydrous formula, meaning no water, those have longer shelf lives. And typically, when you look at something that is not in water, it has to be driven into the skin some way. So the liquid ones are driven in by water. Anything else that doesn't have water in it has to have a lipid, so a fat. So typically it's vitamin E. And I think that is one of those things that kind of gets missed, where there's always additional ingredients that can be added with vitamin C to actually make the vitamin C better to protect you from the environment.
Okay, so are there certain ingredients that people should look for on the label, like liposomal vitamin C, like sodium
Yes.
ascorbic acid, like what are certain things people should look for? And then the other question I had is if your vitamin C product is not clear, if it turns yellow or brown, does that mean it's been compromised by sun, heat, or oxygen, and you really shouldn't be using it?
Yeah, that means it started to oxidize.
Okay.
And a lot of times where some companies will say, oh, the change is okay. But sometimes that can cause irritation on the skin. And then that person now is dealing with something else that they didn't expect to deal with when they started their vitamin C. So I think it's really making sure that the average person walking in understands that they need to use it in 3 months. And as an esthetician, you need to communicate that. This needs to be something that you you're working through every single day. You're going to have about a 3 month supply here. And understanding that at that 3 month mark, you might start seeing changes in it. That tells you that it's time to get a new bottle, and you should be empty by then.
Oh, definitely. Mine lasts like
Yeah.
a month,
Mine doesn't, I was going to say mine doesn't even come close to lasting 3 months. So
Well, because when I'm using skincare, I consider this my face. If you're on YouTube,
yes,
like my face, my neck, and my chest are my face. That's all one continuous area I want to age equally. And then whatever's left on my hands, I sweep. I mean, on my palms, I sweep on the back of the hands just for, that the sun coming in through the windows when I'm driving in the car in Arizona because it's so bright here. So, what ingredients do people look for? Like, are there certain names? Because it gets
might as
complicated.
well. Yeah, like tocopherol. Somebody
Okay.
might see that and not know what that is, but that's vitamin E.
hmm
You
And
know,
that's always going to boost vitamin C.
yes, always going to boost vitamin C. Sometimes you'll see hexyl resorcinol with a
Okay.
vitamin C, and that is an ingredient that helps with pigmentation.
hmm
Because one of the reasons we use vitamin C is to brighten up the skin. And if you have struggled with sun damage, which does anybody not have a little bit of sun damage? We live in the United States and most people don't wear SPF. So having an additional ingredient in there for pigmentation will really help. And those are really the two main ones that I find that I'm looking for when I am helping somebody find something. I've had people pull me over at Target because I'll be sitting there on the phone talking to somebody and about something, and then they'll say, "Oh, can you help me?" And I'll say,
What,
"Oh, yes," and we'll look and I'll say, "Oh, this one has vitamin E in it," or something like that. And I'll just say this, this will be good for your skin. So it nourishes. Vitamin E is an antioxidant. So I always lean towards the fact that the more antioxidants you can get on your skin, the better.
in the
Be-
morning?
yeah, in the morning, because we are bombarded by the sun, we're bombarded by everything that's in the environment. And just like you and I are sitting in front of a computer right now, the blue light factor is something that we didn't talk about 20 years ago.
hmm
And we have to talk about it because it definitely ages the skin.
Yeah, I was even thinking this morning because my routine in the morning is to wake up, I do some breath work in bed for like 12 minutes, and then I go in front of my red light. And then I was thinking, oh, I need to get on the computer and do a little research. And I I kind of caught myself because I'm like, oh, I don't have my sunscreen on and I'm going to get the blue light. And I have to confess, I did it anyway. But most of the times I try not to because it's the cumulative effect. Like two
Right.
minutes doesn't matter, 20 minutes doesn't matter, but 20 minutes every day over a year does matter. Okay, I wanted to, so with the vitamin C, it's definitely in the morning, like Sandy had mentioned, because we want to help your skin to naturally protect because we're in protective mode during the day, protecting from environmental toxins. Even our metabolism being up is making reactive oxygen species. But like when you exercise, you don't want to have antioxidants right after you exercise because we want that little damage to make our muscles stronger. So we don't want to use more and more antioxidants. And that's why, like at night, you really don't need them. That's not
Right.
supporting the body's natural processes. So we're just supporting our body to do what it wants to do with all of these recommendations. So to look for with a vitamin C product, you want to see if it's boosted with an E. You want to make sure it's not yellow or brown. Look for liposomal and
Yeah.
sodium ascorbate forms, and then use it during the day. And now, how about a percentage? Does the percentage matter?
Yes, percentage is very important. So I always say it needs to be at least 15%. So 15 to 20. 20% is truly the medical grade of like the upper echelon of vitamin C. And so if you can find something that is in that range of 15 to 20%, you're really going to be, very well protected. If you find something that's an L-ascorbic vitamin C, you definitely want to make sure that that one is not in a liquid form.
Okay. I can't find anything less than 15%, like going through the
There's a,
drugstore.
I think there's some that's at 10.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
start.
Yeah, it's
It's a
a
good
good,
start.
you have to start. It's better than nothing.
Hmm.
But, for me, if I had to give up something that I wasn't going to do on my skin, vitamin C would not be it. I really feel that, because I'm never going to give up my SPF. My license plate used to say, and when I lived in Arizona, I love SPF. So
I
I'm a huge,
agree. It's my second after SPF. I
yeah,
agree.
yeah,
Even before my retinol at night. And
yeah.
so I like to take vitamin C and then I like to put like an alpha hydroxy afterwards because I feel like it works better in an acidic environment and then I'm boosting the brightness. What are your
Yeah, I
thoughts on
love
that?
that. Oh, I
Okay.
love that. That's a great idea. And I
Okay.
think it really is anything that can boost something else is always a good thing. And I love all alpha hydroxy acids because the one thing is that they can work with everybody.
Just to get those layers off. So I want to go back with the C though. Is there anyone who should not use vitamin C? Because with acne, I often get confused. I take it out of my acne patients,
Mhm.
but there are studies showing that patients with acne are deficient in antioxidants. So I get torn, and then
Yeah,
rosacea, which I struggle with, I can't quite get up to a 20% vitamin C. I'm good with 15%, no problem. But 20% I sometimes can cause a flare in rosacea. Is this just me or is this something that you see
that's very
commonly?
common. Very common. I think a lot of times when you look at vitamin C's, when I'm treating cystic acne, they are the ones that really struggle with vitamin C in the morning because they feel, for one thing, they don't want to put extra ingredients on their skin in the morning. And so I will look for other antioxidants, like alpha hydroxy acids that are maybe in a cleanser or a moisturizer to try to, help exfoliate. And then once I get them to a certain point, then I can move in and add that vitamin C back in.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point because a lot of patients that are dealing with acne right now, they also are overwhelmed with a lot of products. And you mentioned that one of the mistakes people make is using too many products. So, I have one more question about vitamin C before we move on. Are there any, because I don't think it's often discussed how different ingredients interact.
Mm-hmm.
And are there any ingredients like growth factors or exosomes or anything that maybe become less effective in the presence of vitamin C that you're aware of?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so vitamin C is
Yeah,
really a good staple for everyone to have as their first step after cleansing in the morning.
yeah,
Okay, and
absolutely.
I'm going to confess that I don't cleanse in the morning.
You know
I
what? I don't cleanse in the morning either.
I do
Uh,
go
so,
ahead. I do my own
well,
cleansing.
yeah.
What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Oh no, I don't cleanse in the morning because I'm dry.
Okay. Do you rinse or anything?
Yeah, like I will. I have a little soft. I have a bunch of little soft pads, and I'll get it wet, and I'll just kind of wipe off because if I'm using retinol the night before, I want to make sure that it's no residue is left. But I don't actually get my cleanser going and cleanse my face.
Okay, I do. I take one of those exfoliating cotton rounds
Yeah.
and I will use a toner.
Hmm.
So in the summer, if I'm oilier, then I'll use like, I don't know, like a salicylic acid toner. And in the winter, I'll do more of a hydrating toner. And I put it on the pad and I just rub, 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 neck and face and chest. And it's amazing how much dirt has been like secreted out of my skin overnight. My pores have just extruded it. And then I rinse. And that's my cleansing in the morning. And then I use the vitamin C. So vitamin C is your first step after however you want to cleanse.
Yes.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
going back to cleansers, like you mentioned, finding a good cleanser. How does someone know it's a good cleanser for them? Because I think we're overtrained to, I mean, when I was young, I was taught that if your skin feels really taut, and tight, you got a really good cleanse. But that's not what I'm going for now. So how does someone know what to even look for with a good cleanser?
Well, and I always just say if your skin feels really taut like that, you've just stripped your lipid barrier, so it shouldn't feel like that. It should feel it can feel a little bit of oh, I don't want to call it tautness because that's a new word. But I always just say if you're oily, typically you need something that is going to be more of a gel based cleanser because it's going to have ingredients like it might have lactic acid in it, it might have salicylic acid in it. It's going to have other ingredients that are going to help get through that oil that's built up either during the day or at night. And then if you're dry, you're going to look for something that's probably more of a creamier cleanser that's not going to have a foaming action because you're going to need to be a little bit more gentle because your body isn't making oil like it did when you were younger, or you live in an environment that doesn't have enough humidity to hydrate your skin from the outside in during the day. And doing something that's more creamy is going to be more gentle on your skin. I think for people who wear a full face of makeup, a lot of times that's really hard because they feel like a creamy cleanser isn't going to get their skin clean enough and get all their makeup off. So then there's another level there. So a lot of times I'll find something that's maybe an oil-based cleanser. And then that way you're hydrating your skin, but you're also removing all of your makeup at the same time.
Okay, that's nice. That's good. What about double cleansing with like micellar water to get the makeup off and then using a cleanser?
That's awesome.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Glad you approve. That's
Yeah.
what I do. Okay.
And I think that that's it. I mean, just so like even as we're talking, so we've talked about keeping things kind of simple for people, but then there's always adding in one more thing. And as long as you can keep somebody's routine simple for them so they don't feel overwhelmed and that they're going to use what you're prescribing them to do.
Right, because consistency is key and I think the biggest thing I've always seen is people coming with like bags and bags of different products that they've tried. And the products might be less expensive than something I might sell in the office per se, but by the time you add it all up, like I could give them two products in the office that could be way more effective than the 12 products that they brought in.
Right.
And I just feel like everyone's a little impatient. Like you have to give skincare, 2 to 3 months before you consider adding, changing, subtracting. What are your recommendations on that?
Yeah, I typically like to keep them simple the first time. And then when they come back in the next month for their next treatment or facial, sometimes people will say, well, I can't work in a full procedure every month. So I have express facials that I'll say, well, let me just look at your skin and see how you're doing. So they
Yeah.
come in, do a reevaluation. How's your product working? And then I might add something, but I always say, you're going to give me 60 to 90 days with every new product. They might see a change in 2 weeks because maybe they haven't been using something that is as active. But then I look like a real rock star. But I really like to keep it 60 to 90 days because it just takes the skin and it just takes the skin that long to turn over. If you're a woman and you're in your 50s or 60s, your skin isn't turning over at 28 days like it was in your 20s.
Yeah, we discussed that in the Skin 101 Physiology of Skin
Yeah.
episode. So, okay, so so the basic regimen for anyone to do is cleanse in the morning,
Mhm.
vitamin C, SPF, and then what would be your next recommendation in the morning for someone to do?
So then I would look at them and say, okay, after they've done that routine for, a good month or two, and they might say, I'm ready to add something else. So then it's back to the evaluation of what their goal was for their skin. So if they're a little bit dry, then I might add in a hyaluronic acid serum. Or I might add, if they were looking at pigmentation, I might add in a serum that is going to target that pigmentation. And if it's acne, more than not, I have also talked to them about spot treatment already.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, going back to your point of saying that sometimes people see results sooner
Mm-hmm.
than 2 to 3 months, we know from studies that just adding hydration to the skin can make fine lines and wrinkles look softer and smoother and the skin look plumper. So, like one of my hacks, if you're going out at night and you want to look like bright, is just to take some mineral water, like La Roche-Posay or Bioderma both make some nice mineral water, and spray it on, and then take that hyaluronic acid and just coat here and then coat here and
Yeah.
coat the areas where you want to get the glow and the plumpness. And that kind of makes you red carpet ready or whatever you want to call it. So we know that hydration will give you results quicker, but at a physiological level, like if we take biopsies of the skin, we're not actually going to see real improvement for 2 to 3 months until the cells cycle through. Okay, so as far as prioritization, Sandy's mentioned cleansing, then vitamin C in the morning, then maybe a targeted serum for pigmentation or acne, and then hydration and obviously your SPF. And that's in the prioritization list. Now, anything else in the morning you want to talk about before we jump to night?
Well, as you prioritize, then after you go through that, then the next step would be probably like maybe an eye cream.
Okay. I
But
never use eye cream in the morning because I feel like it messes up my makeup. Is
I
there
feel the
something
same
I'm
way. I
okay?
have a couple of patients though that don't really wear makeup. And so they like to put their eye cream on in the morning and then just put their sunscreen on top of it. You know,
Okay.
it's
I know
more of
that
a
like
night thing for me.
yeah, yeah. I feel like at night too, I just overhydrate. I look like one of those ladies with the cold cream in the 1950s because at night is when our body wants to absorb hydration anyway. It's not really doing that. And sometimes just higher cortisol during the day will like make more oil. And that's my skin. That's
Yeah.
speaking for me. Everyone is different. And there are eye creams that are serums and a little bit more cosmetically elegant that's not going to mess up eye makeup as well. So it's really a personal thing. And that's why getting evaluated by an esthetician who understands your skin and your skin's needs and your location and the time of year, that all plays a role.
Yes.
Okay. And then as far as budget, because I always like to be conscious of people's budget, like a cleanser lasts a long time, like sometimes 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you,
and I think that's another thing that people think they need. They've maybe been using something over the counter, maybe that they've purchased that is less expensive. When things are purchased in a spa or a medical office, they're going to be more concentrated. So you use so much less. So a lot of times you're only using maybe a dime size, maybe a nickel size of something. And that is why you might go, oh my goodness, this is more expensive, but it really isn't. It's actually less expensive because it's going to last you 4 to 5 months.
and work better. And here's the thing, this is why, just so people understand, we're not trying to like get you to buy expensive products. But I help a lot of companies create skincare. And when you're making skincare for a mass market of people, your number one priority is not efficacy. It's making sure people don't have side effects. So you have to keep concentrations low. You have to keep things, less aggressive on the skin so that you don't cause a lot of reactions. Whereas when you're being seen by a medical esthetician or in a dermatologist's office, you are getting more of a bespoke, personalized plan where a little bit goes a long way. It's just for your skin, it's not for everyone's skin. And something like a cleanser might last like 4 to 6 months. So you buy that and you buy your SPF, and then your budget allows you to get something else. You haven't run out of your cleanser. Now you add your vitamin C. And then as you have more of a budget, you don't have to replenish everything. You just add the steps as Sandy mentioned. Did I explain that right?
Yeah. And I think
Okay.
too, if the average person, I hear this all the time when I talk to my friends or I've been at parties and they'll go, oh my gosh, I walk into my dermatologist's office and there's so much product that they might sell 4 or 5 brands. And the reason is because not everything's good for everybody. So they
And
might use different brands for different types of skin. So then that gives their esthetician a chance to customize something for you.
Exactly. You don't need to have the same brand cleanser and the same brand vitamin C. Like there's definitely some vitamin C's I like better for certain skin types and it's only made by one company. And then I like a moisturizer from another company. So when you're going to someone who can give you advice that's invested in your skin, not in one particular skincare line, selling you everything from them, that's a different sort of a story. Okay, so going to nighttime. So nighttime, get the dirt off, get the makeup off.
Yeah. So cleansing, cleansing, cleansing. So, and I'm not against a double cleanse. Like if you feel at the end of the day, you cleanse your skin, you rinse your skin, you cleanse it again, by all means do that. I'm, not that person. I don't believe in cleansing your skin and then just splashing water on your face because that's not really removing anything. The cleanser is doing its job to loosen everything up, but you have to wipe it away. So I always tell everyone you can use a soft cloth. There's so many type of soft cloths that you can purchase. You can use gauze. I know people who go and they buy sleeves of gauze. But the one thing I will tell you is that if you're just cleansing your skin and leaning and then just splashing, you're not really getting all the environment off. So it really has to be wiped. If you don't ever want to do that, then once again, you're going to have to add in something to do that. You're going to have to maybe do a toner at nighttime just to make sure that you've removed all of the environment.
What about brushes? Like,
I don't like those.
see, I love this is why you have to intuitively at the end of the day listen to your own body because what works for me or works for Sandy doesn't work for everyone, right? And I mean, you see a lot more people and train people on this stuff, but I love when Clarisonic stopped making their brushes, I bought 10 of them just so I have a
You
supply.
had them.
I have them and I use it. I've used my Clarisonic brush for a really long time, and I know there's silicone brushes on the
Mhm.
market now. I feel like maybe there's a little bit of a hormetic effect to stimulate because we're wanting to stimulate our collagen without tearing our elastic tissue
Right.
by being overly aggressive. I just don't feel the same cleanse. I can't explain it. It's a feel thing for me. So
Yeah.
why don't you like them? Are you worried about bacteria? Like, what are you worried about?
I have
Or what?
a couple of different things. Bacteria for sure, because people who typically use those don't cleanse them. Sometimes you have to really look at what the bristles of the brush are made out of. Sometimes,
Mhm.
if it's a very inexpensive over the counter, it might not be the best for your skin. And the manual ones that are just a brush on the end of a stick, people push too hard and then they're damaging their skin. So there is one that I truly like that is a silicone one and it vibrates a little bit. The brand is escaping me at the moment. Fioro or something like that. It's Foreo. That's a
Oh,
nice.
Foreo. Yeah, I looked into that. I
Yeah,
actually looked
that's
into
nice.
that. Okay.
Yeah, I actually
Okay.
have one of those. I like that. It's got a longer side and a shorter side, but you're not pressing real hard with that. So you're not going to have the damage. I just find that the average person who uses a manual brush brushes too hard. So I would rather them use a washcloth than that.
Yeah. We want some sort of process where you're
Daily
gently
exfoliation.
say, I'm sorry, say that again.
Oh, like a daily exfoliation. I think that um, we look at exfoliation as being a couple of times a week, or you go to your esthetician to get a great exfoliation facial. But when you look at daily, just using a washcloth to wipe off your skin is a little bit of exfoliation right there. And so
Yeah,
your serums that you're going to apply after soak into your skin a little more
right.
efficient.
So when we get the dead skin cells off that are adherent
Hmm.
and and the dirt and the grime and the makeup, then it's going to help everything get absorbed better at night when you're applying your skincare routine. And as Sandy had mentioned, the skin is not a no pain, no gain sort of thing. If your skin burns or hurts or feels like a sunburn, you're too aggressive or something you're using on your skin isn't right. I don't feel as though anyone should ever be feeling a burning sensation with at-home skincare.
Absolutely not.
Okay. So let's talk about night. So after you cleanse, what do you recommend?
Fine. So this is where if somebody really feels that they need a toner, they can use a toner. There are so many toners on the market. They can be anything that are hydrating with just really nice hydrating ingredients. They might have like a rose water that's very gentle. Um, they might have lactic acid in them. So if you have really oily acneic skin, you might need that to feel that your skin is cleansed and ready to apply your acne medicines at night. But for the most part, I have one that I like that is, it's more of a hydrating. I don't do it every night, but I probably do it 2 or 3 nights a week. And then I'm ready to go into my serums.
Okay, so with toners, if someone is has pigment issues, what ingredients should they look for?
Oh, I love things that maybe have like pumpkin, like a pumpkin toner, which is really nice.
Yeah, sounds
Lactic
nice.
acid is really nice. That's what some of the organics, like you might look for cucumber is actually really nice for pigmentation. And so pretty basic things
And
that
then
would really help.
acne prone, what do they look for?
Salicylic acid and lactic
Uh,
acid.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
for
then
sure.
rosacea prone, what ingredient do they look for?
Rosacea is a tough one because you have to be so gentle. So really things that are like a rose water is
Mm,
awesome for rosacea because
love
it's
that.
just gentle and it almost has a like a cooling effect on the skin, which is really nice.
I love that. And then if someone is dry and aging and postmenopausal, but without any of the other conditions, what do they look for in a toner? What
I would just
ingredients?
say just super basic. They can almost do anything as long as they're staying away from salicylic acid.
Got it. Okay. Beautiful. That's so great. Okay. So after you cleanse, plus or minus tone,
Mhm.
then what?
Then I start, then it's really, there's a couple of ways that I might go. So if you are anti-aging, then I'm really going to be looking at what is going to be happening in your body overnight. So we lose so much water overnight, which we can dive into a little bit later, but hydration. We also are looking at fine lines and wrinkles that connects with hydration, but also too, you might want to have something else that's active. And then if it's somebody who's a little bit younger, they might just want to, a good, what I call the good feel of maybe some epidermal growth factors, things like that, and then retinol.
Okay. So let's prioritize. Say that again as far as if someone
So
is anti-aging, what should they do as their first step?
yeah, so a lot of times with anti-aging, retinol is going to be, that's the priority. That's kind of the holy grail of anti-aging. But a lot of times they're also dealing with dryness. So I will typically, I should step back. The traditional is always retinol goes on the skin first without, anything. I don't I don't do the traditional way because if you are aging, typically you're a little dry. So this is where I always add in a hyaluronic acid.
hmm You know, it's interesting because when I was training in the 90s, we were told like don't use any moisturizer or anything else when you apply your retinol or tretinoin, retin A, any of the
Mhm.
prescription ones. And then research studies, we've talked about them over the last 5, maybe even 7 years have shown that if you add some hyaluronic acid and a little bit of hydration before you apply your retinol, then it doesn't decrease efficacy at all. What it does decrease is the side effects that you get, which can be dryness and peeling of the skin, because what we're trying to do with retinol is decrease the adherence of those dead skin cells. So they're adhered together like little bricks on the wall. So it loosens the mortar between the bricks so that the skin can naturally exfoliate. And then there's signals sent down below deep to the stem cells to say, hey, get moving, rev up, make some new, hey, stem cells, make some new fresh skin. So there's a lot. TikTok drives me crazy. There's a lot on TikTok. I don't follow it, but I hear from people who do. There's a lot on TikTok about like how bad retinols are and how they thin your skin and What's the fact and what's the fiction? Because I do know that a lot of estheticians, when they go to school, they're taught not to recommend retinols because when you're waxing someone, it can make you more likely to have a burn and your skin appear burned. So they're just told, no, don't do it at all, which we know isn't the truth. So can you
Right.
clarify all that?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Which makes me sad that there's schools out there that are teaching no retinol because, retinol is great. It is, if you look back at how things changed. So when in the 90s, the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, retinol wasn't even talked about as much as retinoic acid. And so it was always retinoic acid. Well, what women noticed was that, oh, if I get a Retin A prescription from my doctor, I used to use it for acne when I was younger, but now it's really anti-aging. It's helping with, create collagen, like stimulate collagen. That's what we want. Well, then technology, science, clinicals all found that we could use a retinoid or a retinol and get those same effects on the skin without the side effects of it getting a little red. So the difference is that when you get that prescription, you're taking the retinoic acid that's already in acid form and you're putting it on your skin. That's why we get red and we get a little peely, because just like if you go in for, say, a treatment of a chemical peel, that's an acid, they're putting it directly on your skin. If you're using a retinoid or retinol, really the same thing, just different names. The skin naturally turns it from retinol into retinoic acid. And so it's like that little machine in your cells says, oh, I know what to do with this. I'm going to transform this and turn it into retinoic acid. And then I'm going to send it out to all the cells and it's going to nourish the cells and it's going to stimulate collagen. But I'm not going to have all the pinkness and the peeling because it's taking a gentler, slower time to get from point A to point B.
Yeah. And, to that point that you just mentioned, it's it works by messengers. It works through the nucleus of the cell, actually, by hitting receptors. So as opposed to a sunscreen or a moisturizer where we want to have complete coverage for it to do its job, we don't need to have complete coverage with retinols or tretinoins because that is what causes more irritation. So what we always recommend is putting like a pea or a pearl sized amount on your fingertip, applying it to the center of the forehead, each cheek, the chin, and rubbing it in and having it meet each other, avoiding the creases of the nose, avoiding the creases of the lips. And then for me, when I apply to my neck, avoiding that crease where I might sleep at night and it might sit in there and cause a lot of irritation. And those are some ways to avoid irritation, but getting maximum benefits by trusting the physiology and trusting the cell signaling to help renew and rejuvenate your cells.
Yeah. And I always tell patients, I always just say, have you ever watched an airplane take off from a carrier on the ocean? It takes off and it's going, and then it goes whoosh. And I say, that's what it does on your skin. When you're doing just a little bit, it goes down and then it travels underneath the skin and the
I love
signal
that.
begins.
I love that analogy. That's so true. When we believe that more is better, but the studies show a lower strength works as well as a higher strength at 6 months. So you might get there sooner if you go through all the peeling and all the irritation. You may get the result sooner if you don't mind going through that, just like if you get a series of chemical peels every 2 weeks in the office,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So, it just depends on what your goals are and what your patience level is and what your social level is. And there's so many variables. That's why you really need to consult with someone who understands the physiology of skin.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so you've got your cleanser plus or minus toner, whatever it takes to get the makeup and the dirt off, and
Mhm.
then add your hyaluronic acid and retinol.
That's my
Did I?
anti-aging factor. And then if somebody has, if they have additional texture issues or they just, a lot of times people, they read so much, they see stuff on Instagram, they see stuff on TikTok. I'm not a TikTok girl either. And they'll say, I keep seeing something about peptides. Once again, there's so many different types of peptides. There's signaling peptides that are going to signal collagen. There's peptides that help with movement of muscle, or, the movement of, around our eyes or our forehead. So they might want to add in a serum that falls into that category. But
Can you,
once again, I try to keep it simple when I first start with them.
okay, just say someone's listening, they're like, I already use a vitamin C, I use a retinol, I have a great moisturizer and a cleanser. What, what are some ingredients? What are some of these peptides they should look for in skincare? And what
Yeah.
is the purpose of them? And then where do they add them in the skincare regimen? Is it once a day, twice a day? What step do we go in?
Yeah. So I always add in any peptides. I'll put them on after my retinols, is typically how I have everybody do it. Because I want the retinol to be the point person. So I might do, so it'll be cleanse, tone, or not tone, and then get the hyaluronic acid on there if you're anti-aging, get your retinol on, and then on top of that, I will choose to do a peptide. So there are, I don't want to say thousands, but probably, 100 different peptides. So
Hmm.
you might look for, it'll say like tripeptide or hexapeptide when you're looking through the ingredient listing. And that's how you know that it's active. Because if you'll see the word peptide, but it'll have a booster in the front. So it could be a tripeptide, a hexapeptide, an octapeptide. That just means how many are in that group, and then sometimes it'll have a number after it. It might have like a 30, a 38, a 54, something like that. And that you don't have to pay attention to as much, but just look for peptide in the ingredients listing. And then that's going to tell you by looking at that and then flipping over to the front and looking to see if it says builds collagen, you know? So then you know that those peptides that are listed in the back are building collagen, like tripeptide 38 builds collagen. That's just one that I come across a lot, and a lot of the skincare brands. So,
Okay, so I love that the transition is perfect. So these peptides, and I just want to mention when you're applying skincare, you go from thinnest to thickest.
mhm.
Um, okay, so as far as peptides building collagen, right? Collagen isn't just going to magically build unless we give it the resource it needs
Mhm.
from our diet, correct?
Yes.
So as, an esthetician that's treated probably tens of thousands of people and trained thousands of people at this point, what do you think is the best thing for an esthetician and for, a client to recommend or to do in between treatments in the office, in addition to their at-home skincare regimen to help optimize the health of their skin?
Oh, wow. That's a big rabbit hole there, Jen. Uh,
Okay, do your best.
yeah, I'll do my best. Well, I think too, you have to start, hydration is key. So we have to talk about the amount of water, because if you're doing active on your skin, you've got to make sure that you're hydrating your body enough so it's flushing out all of the toxins and all of that. But also too, you got to look at vegetables. So when we think
Can
about,
I, I want to take a step back on the
yeah,
water. So people
yeah.
will say like, "Oh, what you drink doesn't make your skin look, more hydrated." But I tend to disagree just based on my personal experience. And I don't think it's going to make your skin like not be dry necessarily, but it will certainly make it dry if you're not hydrated. It won't reverse dryness alone as a solitary thing. But I think you brought up an important point that I don't want to be overlooked. Like the main reason why we want a lot of hydration and water in our bodies is because, as I learned in medical school, dilution is the solution to pollution, right? So as our cells are turning over and we're making all this metabolic waste just by sitting here, by being alive, by breathing, the only way to remove that through our kidneys is through not being dehydrated, through
Right.
water. So that's a really key essential thing to help support our skin and our other organs to optimally function by optimizing itself to detoxify, right?
Right. Well,
So,
and I
okay.
think too, it's one of the things that I spend a lot of time talking to people about water. I get a lot of eye rolls, and I'm okay with that.
It's
Uh,
free and it's not sexy, unfortunately.
exactly. Exactly.
Just like breathing.
Yeah. I would say now it's sexy because everybody wants to have that new Stanley cup with the handle, so that seems to make drinking water better because they will, want to be seen at the gym or, I was just in a meeting recently and two people had their Stanleys and they were very proud of them. So,
That makes me happy because I don't want people drinking out of plastic because now you're adding toxins to your body.
right.
So,
Other,
get a reusable stainless steel. I don't care what brand it
I don't
is.
care what
I
brand it
just
is.
had to
Just
check what mine is. It's
yeah.
Yeti, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, but also too, I think, I always promote people to find something that they can drink out of all day long and refill because of the fact, and I'm definitely not a plastic person and I don't drink tap water. I have a special water filtration system, but water is key to life. I think, what are we? This statistic better than me. I think we're what, 60% water?
60 to 70 and our brain is
Yeah.
80. I was telling
Yeah.
my son that before he left for school because he's not a breakfast eater. And I'm like, you need to at least drink some water. And then I gave him some fulvic acid and humic acid with it. I'm like, your brain is 80%. You need to have a drink of water. That's all I'm going
Gotta
to
have
mother
some
you.
water. So I always walk through everybody and I'll say, so you have to think about, we're so worried about what we're putting on our skin in the morning to protect us from the environment. We're doing the same thing at night for, hydration or detoxifying our skin overnight. So there's a reason why we have to get up and pee in the mornings. That our body has gone through so much and it's put our kidneys and our liver and our spleen through. That's their job at night while we're sleeping, is to completely detoxify us. So if you are going to bed dehydrated and if you feel thirsty, you're already dehydrated. So when you get up in the morning, when you do your first urination, look at what the color is. If it's dark, 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 you better start upping your water. And a lot of times people will tell me they don't like the taste of water or they forget to drink water. And I'm always like, well, if you have something that has water in it, just on the hour, drink a few ounces. I always tell everybody, drink 8 to 12 ounces when you wake up in the morning. First thing in the morning, have it sitting next to your bed. Just drink it, drink it, drink it. Get up, start your day. That will trigger you to want more water. So the more hydrated the body is, the more hydrated it wants to stay. And that will help with acne. It helps with anti-aging. It just helps with overall wellness. And instead of grabbing coffee or soda in the afternoon for a pick-me-up, if you drink 8 ounces of water, it will give you a boost of energy. So water is just key to everything. And I just think it's really important I just keep driving it home all the time to everybody that I talk to.
Yeah, I agree. I've always had a lot of desire to drink. I remember in my nutritional biochemistry class in college, we had to collect 24-hour urine to do like biochemistry testing on it. And everybody brought in the container they were given. And I brought in the container and like 6 other like Tupperware containers. And I looked around, I'm like, oh my gosh, I collected like 5.5 liters of water. Like I just always want to drink. So I don't understand when people say that they don't want to drink water. It's hard for me to conceptualize because that's not me. But I think, you know what, like I don't want to get dressed sometimes, like, but I can't walk around naked in the world. We just have to
Right.
make things a habit, right? And as I'm making coffee, I just chug a big thing of water, and I try to add fulvic acid and humic acid because our soil is so deficient in nutrients. And I know like all of our metabolic processes are basically they're halted if we're micronutrient deficient. So those are important aspects. I don't really want to get into the whole water thing because tap water obviously varies from place to place. So, what water filter is there one in particular that you like?
I like anything that has like a dark charcoal filter,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't even think I'm not quite sure if they make them anymore.
Are you talking about the British Berkey?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. Something was up
something
with
happened
that.
with that because of their filtration, but now
Yeah.
there's another company that sells their filters. So, but it's a
Okay.
big stainless steel thing. I fill it up. probably, I drink so much water. I have a 3.5 gallon one. And so I'm filling it up a lot.
Right. Do you
So,
worry about people getting like hyponatremia and low sodium from too much water? Like, how do you know you're getting enough water without too much water?
you know what? I have a lot of people. I'm like, if you look at the facts, I would say take your body weight, divide it by half. That's how many ounces you should have a day. At least that gives you your baseline. If you feel like you're drinking more than that and you're really running to the bathroom a lot, you're probably not maybe holding on to your hydration that you should. So, pink salt, I will have them do just a pinch in one of their water bottles during the day.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
that will help them hold on to hydration more.
it's fascinating because, in medical school, I was trained like to avoid low sodium. Low sodium is
Yeah.
really important. And I've always liked salt because I don't know, I just need it. I have low blood pressure. I'm sure there's something going on with my antidiuretic hormone that hasn't been diagnosed, which I'm perfectly fine not knowing about. But like with salt, they've shown that, and there's a whole book called The Salt Fix. They've shown with salt, like the amount of salt you crave is usually what your body needs.
Mhm.
And I was at a wrestling competition with my son and his friends this weekend, and they were drinking liquid IV and like all these like supplements and stuff. And one of the kids said, "Gosh, this tasted really good, and now it tastes really bad." And I said, "Oh, that's because your body doesn't need that salt anymore. It needed it
Yeah.
earlier. And you just have to listen to your body. If something's super salty, like say you don't need it. You
Right.
have enough sodium."
Well, and
So,
I think it's what's really interesting is that people forget, like when you sweat, what does it taste like?
mhm.
Salt. So we need it. Unless you have a heart condition that your cardiologist says, don't do it. But pink salt is one pinch is not going to, it's just going to help you absorb better. I make my own. This is funny because even though I try to be healthy 90% of the time and 10% of the time I do whatever I want. That's getting smaller and smaller. I find out as I get older and older. But one of the things I love, I like sweets, and I found that I can make my own caramel sauce that I can dip my cut up apples and bananas in, but it's made with dates. So it's dates and it's a
Oh.
pinch of salt and a little vanilla and some almond milk, or I make my own almond milk or cashew milk. So that, and you mix it together and, on a high speed blender, and I get a little caramel sauce. And last night I made it while I was watching football, and I put too much salt in it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so salty. But I
You
can't
need
do
to make more and dilute it. Just make
yeah,
more.
I know. I'm about to make more today and mix it in there. So without any added salt. But I think that it is one of those things where I thought, I made this last week and I used the same amount of salt, but this week it tasted salty. Last week it didn't. So, your body changes all the time, just like your skin changes all the time. It changes from season to season.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So, I want to dive more into the nutrition aspect of it, but I'm always afraid to give recommendations on here or everywhere, just in general terms, because as we had mentioned, people have personalized needs that need to be addressed. So, general advice and the commercials that are out there and the marketing make it sound like one thing is good for everyone. And at the end of the day, I want people to get to a point where you learn the intuitive needs of your skin. So, you seek information, you accumulate that knowledge and that information, you try it on your skin, and there's certain times of your menstrual cycle that it's easier to try things on, like when you're ovulatory and in like the second week of your cycle, your skin is a lot more tolerant to things than it is like when you first get your period and it's drier because all your hormones have dropped. Or if you're peri and postmenopausal, your skin's less tolerant to trying things. But like we want you to try things and go by these guidelines that Sandy's talking, but at the end of the day, you need to like intuitively check with yourself and see what feels right to you, right? So with the cycling, things are going to change depending on the season, depending on someone's menstrual cycle, depending on where they live. So how do we even start with organizing that?
Well, and I think that that's why it's better to start simple and build, because I've been in practices where they say we have to recommend 5 products for the morning and 5 products at night. And then if something doesn't work for somebody, then you don't know which product it is. So I think that's where it goes back to finding a simple routine. and then add in one thing at a time. Don't add in two or three things at a time. And
How
and then
often? How often? Do you wait 2 weeks to add in a thing or you
I
wait six
typically
weeks?
I typically wait a month.
Okay.
I'm going to add this in. We're going to talk next month, see how your skin is doing, and then if we want to add something else. Also, too, I all I always want to take skincare can be expensive, so I always want to take in the fact that if I'm selling a retinol that's $150, but I want them to use this other serum with that's $200. I don't want them to say every time I go to her, she's trying to sell me $300 or $400 worth of product. So I always just, I lay it out for them. This is my ultimate goal for you, but we might not get there. Your skin might get to a place where you go, I'm happy with the way my skin looks. It's happy. I'm getting great results. And we might not need to add in all of the other serums that I think you could possibly use. So it's just taking it slow, a little bit at a time. And once again, a serum that you use in January, if you live someplace where you're having below zero temperatures, is not going to be the same thing that you're going to use if you are going on vacation or somebody else who lives someplace like where you live, where it's warm. Your winters are what, 40, 50 degrees on a cold day. So everything depends on where you live, and every season you have to reevaluate what you're doing with your skin, because heat is going to affect your skin differently than when it's cold outside. Wind chill, all of that comes into play.
Right. Yeah. And I'm going to do a deeper dive on cyclical skincare. But you really need to readdress every 3 months with what you're using
Absolutely.
on your skin. And I don't feel as though skincare is exclusive for people who have money to afford it. I think it's accessible for everyone. And to your point of budgeting, like we can any woman, no matter what your budget, you can take care of your skin and you
Absolutely.
deserve to take care of your skin. You deserve it.
Yeah. It's just, taking care of yourself is not selfish.
Absolutely not.
And to be honest, it is the thing that we see all the time. We look in mirrors when we get ready in the morning, when we're washing our hands throughout the day. You know, this is what people see when they talk to us. You should feel good in your skin. And it doesn't always mean that you have to use 18 different products a day. So it's what works for your skin is what works for your skin.
Yeah, and there's something beautiful about the ritual of just being with yourself twice a day for a few minutes, and it doesn't take a lot of time. I mean, cleanse your face, touch your skin, stimulate the blood flow, stimulate the collagen and elastic tissue when you're applying things, and brush your teeth, put your sunscreen on, and you're out the door. It really doesn't take any
Mhm.
time at all. So it's very, very quick and it can be integrated. Like I'll cleanse, brush my teeth, put a serum on, get dressed, put a sunscreen on, and I go. You know what I mean? You don't have to sit there for 20 minutes doing steps. Night's a little longer, but I want that time alone to decompress. I mean, do that ritual for yourself. It's a beautiful time to be alone and take care and nourish yourself.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so going back to feeding your skin from the inside out, there's so much people can do. Maybe what are your top 5 things that people could either integrate or take away from their diet that they should be focusing on?
I will say that if you are a big red meat eater and you struggle with acne or just anti-aging in general, red meat is the most highly inflammable, highly inflammational. That's not even a word, but uh, and creates the most inflammation in the skin and throughout the body.
I'm going to
So
disagree.
you can disagree.
I'm a big
So
meat eater, but I think
I
it's
know
the
you're a big meat.
source. Well, I think it's the source of the meat. So obviously, if you're having wild game, it's going to be a lot different from
Oh, totally
conventional.
different.
Yeah, when
Right.
you're talking about conventional cows that are corn fed, that the poor little babies never get the sunlight and don't get to eat grass or anything, I wouldn't eat that for anything.
No, it's totally, and that's what most of America eats.
yeah. So like with red meat, which I don't eat a ton of. I mean, I'm not going to say I eat a ton of, but like you have to have 100% grass-fed, grass-finished. Be kind to the animals. I feel like their cortisol response is translated in the meat and it makes it acidic and not optimal for our nutrition, and what the animal eats imparts in our bodies what we eat.
Right, right.
So
I will say I had a really bad experience on the highway one time, and talking about cortisol levels. And I was behind a truck full of pigs, and as the highway kind of curved, I was kind of catty corner behind it, and all of a sudden, all of this fluid came flying out of the truck, and I thought, all of those animals are their cortisol levels are super high, which means now when they're being butchered, all of that is in their skin, in their that all of that is what the person who's going to eat that is going to ingest. So,
100%.
yeah, so I think that that's one thing. I also think that the standard American diet is sad. So it really is positioning how you when you are dishing up your food, half of your plate should be vegetables. And then the other quarter should be your meat and then your starch, maybe it'd be rice, potatoes, whatever you want to do that. I think years and years ago, it always used to be that if you looked at a piece of meat, it shouldn't be bigger than the palm of your hand. And then you go to these restaurants where a piece of meat is this big. So I think that if you want to do that, like if that is your choice, then make sure that it's small. Like don't to ask how many ounces it is. 4 ounces or 6 ounces is plenty of meat, whether it be chicken or pork or whatever. But the biggest piece should be vegetables, because all of the antioxidants, the polyphenols that are in vegetables, everything that also is going to help with the detoxification that your body's going to go through at night. It's not the meat that's going to do that, it's the vegetables. So it's really important to just have them be colorful, and when I do health coaching, I take people to the grocery store and I just say, you shop as normal. And I'm along for the ride. And I chit chat with them. I just follow them through the grocery store. And then we go off to the side and we analyze what they've purchased, what they're going to purchase. And most of the time we're putting 80% of it back because it's processed foods, things that just the body doesn't break down like they think of, or if they're doing frozen foods, it's in plastic. So I'm always like, you know what? The perimeter is great. And then stick with the vegetables and try new things. There's so many, things that have changed over the years. I will tell you, my daughter was vegan in high school and she's vegan now too, but she kind of went back and forth. But when she was vegan in high school, that was over 10, 12 years ago, it was really hard to find and understand. That was before I went to health coaching school, how to incorporate enough protein in her diet, how to make sure that she was getting the right vegetables. There just wasn't that much available. And now there's so much on the internet. If you're like, oh, I want to try meatless Mondays, find a good recipe for that. Like you can find 1,000 recipes that you might like. And so I always really look at the fact of try to lean more heavily on vegetables and legumes and any kind of bean, anything like that you can just get your, more protein, but keep your protein this small, unless there's always a caveat of like, if you work out really hard or, as women, as we get older, we need more protein than less protein, so a 20-year-old woman and a 60-year-old woman, their protein intakes are slightly different.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if you ever knew I was vegan for 10 years, like
I
through,
did not know that.
yeah, through college. I mean, I think back to college and goodness, Sandy, I don't remember having anything besides Fiber One cereal, apples, and alcohol. Like that's all I remember living on. Like the body is so resilient, and
Yeah.
obviously I'm making up for it now as much as I can. But we all have different microbiomes. We all have different genetic profiles, and we do better with different diets. So it doesn't hurt you to play around with things. But really at the end of the day, what Sandy mentioned is the core, like having something that actually grows on the earth, because when we take in processed food, the SAD diet, the standard American diet, when we take in processed foods, not only does our body not recognize those chemicals, like it takes the detoxification away from metabolizing hormones and doing other things by trying to detoxify all those chemicals out of the food to get any sort of nutrition out of there perfectly. Like look at soda, for instance. If you drink soda, your body's like, okay, I need to take the fake color out. I need to take the fake flavoring out. I need to take the sugar out. Or, if it's diet, take the fake artificial sweetener out just to get water. And
Yeah.
now your liver's tied up doing all that stuff. It can't renew, regenerate, detoxify your hormones, balance your hormones, do all the other things for your body. The other thing is preservatives. So those things can sit on the shelf for 2 years. What do preservatives do? They prevent microbes from forming in food.
Right.
Okay. It's going to kill your gut, your healthy gut microbiome as well when we eat preservatives. It's throwing off the balance of our gut. And our microbiome is associated with our brain and our skin health. So we're
Hmm.
seeing, like we talked about rosacea earlier, now we're seeing that SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, is linked with rosacea. So I do recommend topical skincare for rosacea patients, but like we got to talk about the gut. So
Yeah.
all of this is in the gut, and without those polyphenols, you're not going to make the collagen that you're putting the peptides on your skin for. So what do
Right.
you like? Do you recommend collagen or hyaluronic acid or vitamin C or anything else that's like collagen stimulating? Or
I
you're like,
think, well, I've gone back and forth a
mm-hmm,
lot, and I tend to use myself as a practice dummy. So um, I love plants. I eat a lot of plants, but when I look at collagen, um, I don't know if plant collagen powders give your skin what it needs as much as, say, fish collagen or a bovine collagen, that kind of a thing. Um, but I would say that for me, I did a little test. So I was using a fish collagen powder, and then I thought, okay, I used it for about 6 months and I was like, I could definitely tell a difference in my skin. And then I switched to a plant one and I noticed that my skin wasn't as hydrated. So I think that's a big portion. But then again, some people, it's never going to make it past gut to what goes next is, the lining of your gut, and then, your knees and your elbows and all of that. And by the time it gets to your skin, there's probably not much left. So I think it really is very individual. I think it
right.
depends. If you have a really poor diet and eat a lot of sugar, no matter what amount of collagen powder you're taking, it's never going to show up on your skin.
I agree. I feel like taking out sugar and alcohol will do wonders on your skin, like
Yes,
huge
I agree.
wonders,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I think those are the big things. I mean, it's so hard because I don't want to be like, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. It's so much easier to say add, and going back to the vegetables, like I think I try to do 30 different products a week because like you were mentioning rotating skincare, we also want to rotate our diet because everything has a plus and a minus, right? So like non-conventional red meat, like wild elk, if you're lucky enough to get that, that is going to be good sometimes, but not every day, right? Wild Alaskan salmon, good sometimes, not every day. Broccoli, good sometimes. But if you only have broccoli as your vegetable, you're going to be deficient in other things. So
Oh,
it's like,
sure.
yeah, it's like skincare and it's like food, like chicken. Conventional chicken is high in arsenic because they feed it rice, which is high in arsenic. So, like, we
And
want to,
antibiotics.
yeah, and antibiotics, I know. So we want to rotate everything we eat because everything has a plus and a minus, but the two things that I could think of off the top of my head that you want to eliminate are sugar and alcohol. And then you want to add as many polyphenols as possible. And I tried to do a competition with myself. I don't know, the last few months, can I get 30 vegetables and fruits per week. And I find like, have you heard the company Navitas Organics?
Yes.
They have powders and stuff, and they have some
Yeah.
interesting things like camu camu and maki and, some things you might get in the Amazon or, somewhere else that's not local. And I can add extra stuff that way, as well as like the greens that we have, whether it's athletic
Right.
greens or another greens. And that's a way to get just a more variety because it makes our gut really happy when we have a large variety of things.
Yeah. And I think too, I mean, I think variety is key because you would get bored if you ate the same vegetable all the time. But I think as Americans, most people eat broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots.
Yeah. And
You know,
tomatoes and ketchup.
yeah, yeah. They think that if they're eating ketchup, that, that's good, but it's loaded with sugar. So, so I'm always like, try. It's like I have a friend of mine that she only likes red bell peppers, and I said, oh my gosh, try the green ones and the yellow ones and do a mix, and add in mushrooms.
Right.
Mushrooms are an amazing thing. I find that a lot of people don't like mushrooms, but there's so many different kinds of mushrooms and the way that you can prepare them, and they're really good for all. They're really great for the skin. Mushrooms are wonderful for the skin and
Seriously.
hydration. So
Yeah, and hydration. I'm in love with mushrooms. So like lion's mane for neuroplasticity and helping with BDNF and cordyceps before you work out to increase blood flow and chaga is like good for the immune system, I think. And shiitake has been just shown in some studies to help with like HPV as well. So there's some really good benefits to mushrooms. Thank you for bringing that up.
I drink a
Um,
mushroom powder drink in the mornings.
really? Who makes it?
Mud water.
Oh, I have that one. Okay. And they have a night one too. I
I
don't
love
know.
that one. That night one, when I drink that one, it has ashwagandha in it, I think, and some other things. I sleep so much better on the
There's
nights.
valerian. It
Yeah.
has valerian in it.
Yeah.
The valerian
So,
root
and I
is
just
great.
started that one. I was like, oh, I'll try it, and, a couple of different nights, I was like, wow, I slept so great. What did I do different? I was like, oh, I drank that drink before I went to
Yeah.
bed. So, yeah.
It's good. So those of you listening, it's MUD, MUD, and then WTR, and it's pretty good. I think I have a discount code I could add in the show notes. Okay, so as we close up here, I just wanted to ask you, like when you're training estheticians
Mhm.
and also for clients or patients that are listening, new to starting treatments, just say they're new, this is new for them, or someone's, an esthetician early in their career, like what are some common things you see? You mentioned sometimes recommending too many products or not recommending enough.
Mhm.
Like, where do people start? What's a good thing to start with? If they're just like, I want to start, how do they begin?
Yeah. Well, I think as an esthetician, one of the things to start when there's a couple of questions that you have to ask your patients. So one of my big questions is, how happy are you with your skin right now? And that's where you have to start, because what we look at and what they see in themselves can be completely different. And so that is a great jump off point to say, okay, you are unhappy, you're slightly unhappy, you're happy with your skin, you're just here to make your skin healthier, whatever. And then I also want to say to them, are you a morning person or a night person? Because I want to know how much into your routine you want to give me in the morning or how much you want to do at night. And
Mm,
that's for the average person. Some people are really, really busy and they just are like, I just want to cleanse my skin and put my moisturizer on and go to bed. That's it for me at night. So yeah, I have time to throw a couple serums on in the morning. So it's, that in addition to making sure that they get their SPF on. And I think that that's usually where I start. And then once again, just going back to just the basics, cleanser, sunscreen in the morning, cleanser, moisturizer at night, and then filling in the vitamin C, the retinol, and building out from there. And then, hydration is key all around, inside and out.
I really love that because as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking it's like building a house, right? Like I can't just grab a hammer and expect to build the whole house. I need all the components to build the house. So we're slowly building the house over time. It's a team effort and doing things at home and doing things in the office. And we've gone into a deeper dive on some of the specific procedures, Sandy and I, in episode 5. And, we may want to re-meet again and talk more about some of these procedures because things have changed.
Yeah.
But it's a process. And, we're all just doing the best we can. And before we close out, do you have any last words, anything that we didn't touch on that you think are important points for everyone to hear?
I would say always feel that you can use the internet to your advantage, whether you're an esthetician, whether you are, a layperson on the street that's just trying to find something, use it to look up ingredients. There's always new ingredients coming on the market. And, you can bring them I've had people come to me and say, hey, I heard about this or that. What do you know about it? And I'll say, sometimes I'm like, I don't even know what that is. So I'll get out my phone and Google it up and figure out, what that is. And then I'll say, I'm not getting enough information here. Let me do a little bit deeper dive and I'll text you and let you know if it's, something that we can look into, whether it's a procedure or an ingredient or a skincare brand or anything. Do your own research. Don't always rely on what you see on Instagram or TikTok.
That's so true. That's such a great point because just because it's in writing doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah.
So you need to check your source. Like, do they have an ulterior motive trying to sell you something? Like today, here and now in this conversation, we're not selling you anything. We haven't mentioned any specific brands for a reason because we want everyone listening to have the power and the autonomy and the information to engage in your own health without it coming across like we're selling something. So just check when you see hype on something. If there was one thing that worked for everyone, then there wouldn't be multiple options. So
Right.
there's
Yes.
a reason for that.
It's the
So
reason why when you walk in someplace, there's rows, you walk into a store, there's rows and rows of skincare, and same sometimes when you walk into a dermatology office.
yeah, but hopefully today we empowered you to know what ingredients to look for, how to get started. And if you have any questions or want me to answer your questions on a future AMA, go ahead and DM me on Instagram at Dr. Jen Haley, and I'll answer those. And as far as finding Sandy, how do we find you, Sandy?
I am not as active on Instagram as I used to be. I've kind of taken a little bit of a break from that, but it's sandy.newton with 2 N's on Instagram. And I've made myself private because I stopped posting a lot, but you can always DM me.
Are you working with anyone? Like if somebody wanted to hire you, if an esthetician wanted to be trained by you, are you currently accepting new clients?
Yeah, I do. I've been doing a little bit of consulting with estheticians and a couple of different spas. So I've been doing a little bit of that.
Great. I love that because Sandy has over 30 years of experience. She's seen the industry evolve over time. And I know there's a lot of estheticians that listen to this podcast. So please, we're here for you. And we want you to share the beauty with the world so everyone could be their best selves. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Great. Thanks, Jen.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
If you're enjoying the Radiance Revealed podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode. And while you're at it, please give us a review, as that helps others to find this podcast. And if you want to connect with me, please visit my website, drjenhaley.com, or you can find me on Instagram at drjenhaley.
Hello, everyone. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility made for statements made by guests. Neither this podcast nor any of the information contained within it are a substitute for care by a qualified medical professional. This podcast is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or professional advice or services. If you are looking for help in your journey, please seek out a qualified medical practitioner.